Okay, fishing rod basics. Now, this is not like what rod you should choose for when. This is fishing rod basics. This is talking you through all of the parts of a fishing rod so you can make a better decision when you go to select whatever rod you want to buy, or you just want to pick up, or you want to use for a certain technique. Now, let's go back just briefly on the history of fishing rods. Fishing rods started out as metal. They were actual metal rods, and then they evolved to going to be made out of fiberglass. Fiberglass was relatively heavy, very durable, but they had the notion of being very flimsy. So now all the rods on the market, I mean like 99% of them, are made out of graphite because they're much lighter, much stronger, much more sensitive, much more fun to fish with. Just like, you know, this bait casting rod right here, it's a casting rod, but it's a graphite rod. There's other types of, you know, there's a million different brands out there of graphite rods, but graphite has become to be the gold standard. Now, when they make these blanks, I'm going to show you this other rod. When they make these blanks, it's actually sheets of carbon fiber that are rolled and then they're baked, and I'm not going to explain you through that whole process, but what you need to know is that most rods have what they call in the rod there, they have what's called a spine. Now, in order to find the spine, you have to apply pressure to the rod, and then you have to roll it, and you can feel where that spine is, and you can feel where it makes a lump. It'll go whoomp like that, to where it's a little stiffer on the spine, and then off of the spine it's a little softer. Now, that's the one thing I will tell you about the casting rods. There are a few other rods out there that are unidirectional blanks, which means they don't have a spine. They're rolled in such a way that they're evenly distributed, so when you put pressure on them, roll them all the way around, they're even. So you're not going to have any sort of issues with related to the spine. Now, a lot of overseas rods that are made have they don't even pay attention to the spine when they put the eyes on. It makes a difference to where they put these eyes on with your spine and where it aligns. Overseas rods, they really don't, like some of them will be on spine with the guides, some of them will be off spine with the guides. It's just fascinating, in my opinion, to like pick your rod up that you may have fished with for a long time and put some pressure on it and roll it, and then figure out, hey man, that thing has a spine. You can see where that spine is, because if your spine is on the side or on your guides, it makes a difference, you know. And if you're trying to duplicate that, you need to make sure you can duplicate that if you're going to look for another rod. All right, now when you're going to look at your guides, there's a bunch of differences between the guides. There's micro guides, there's regular size guides, and this applies to spinning rods as well. You know, these are just your normal guides on a spinning rod. In my opinion, with spinning rods, I'm not a huge fan of micro guides if you're going to be using a leader, because it takes a lot to neck down to get down to the little smallest one. So I mean, I helped design this particular rod with Cashion, and this is like the micro guides plus one. The biggest difference between micro guides is micro guides, they're really, really small. Here, I'll show you. I got another rod here that has actual micro guides on it, and you can see they're very, very small. And what you get when you go to micro guides, because you're wanting to keep the line off of the rod blank, when you go to micro guides, you end up going with a bunch more guides. So, you know, a normal guide rod might have, for a 7-foot rod, might have 8. When you go to micro guides, you're going to have probably 12 or a lot more to keep that line off the rod. There's a couple advantages to micro guides. In my opinion, they're definitely more sensitive. So the rods, you have more touch points. Your line is going to be touching those guides in more places. So that's going to give you more touch points to where it makes the rod noticeably more sensitive. So when people go to trashing micro guides, it depends on what application you're going to be using it for. Like this is a shallow crankbait rod. For shallow crankbait fishing, there can be times where that micro guide is key. But if you're going to be fishing and it's going to be close to freezing temperatures, you probably don't want micro guides because they're smaller. They're gonna ice up quicker and easier and faster. But that's really kind of the only exception. If you're going to be fishing really big line, like you might think, oh, well, I like to flip with 20 or 25 pound fluorocarbon, I don't want micro guides. No, that doesn't really apply either, because even those little teeny guides, if your line goes through there, it goes through there just fine, and it's just as sensitive. I really like the smaller micro guides on my flipping sticks, but if I'm going to be using braid, like 50-pound braid for frog fishing, I like the one size up, the next size up for micro guides, which are kind of like these ones right here. They're just one size up from the micro guides. And then just to kind of talk about everything, this right here is called a microwave guide, and it's like a little guide inside of a big guide. And these are really neat. They were developed for spinning rods and for casting rods. And this is a casting rod, but in the spinning rod, I think you can definitely feel the difference when you're casting, even more than a bait caster. Both of them are the same, but the microwave guides, what they're intended to do, now the microwave guide is only on the very first guide, and the rest of the guides are normal guides. And the reason that they have that guide inside of a guide is that when you cast with your bait caster, and the line is streaming off your reel, the line is streaming off like this. So the energy from your line coming out of the reel is in waves or in frequencies. And what that microwave guide does is it helps stabilize that so the energy can go in a direction. So scientifically speaking, there's no doubt that microwave guides help funnel the energy to channel it to go out of the rod quicker and faster and more efficient. And now if you've got microwave guides in your spinning rod with that bigger microwave guide, there's no doubt you can feel the difference on that spinning rod. In my opinion, you can actually see it. If you've got like yellow, like on this rod, I've got the yellow line on there as the backing, that braid. When you get to that yellow line and you make that cast, you can visibly see the frequency of that line coming off of the spool, and it's going to look like a frequency wave. And then as it goes through that microwave guide, it funnels down to where it starts go in a straight line, and that means the energy is going to be going more in a straight line, and it's going to be more efficient. So that's a little brief history on microwave guides, which I think is kind of cool. So now there are more components to the rod other than the guides. We've got the reel seat. Fuji is kind of the standard for a lot of rod parts, but they're the ones that kind of innovated the modern reel seat, as far as I know. Somebody else, if you know different, please hit me up in the comments and educate everybody. But now there's a couple companies that make really good reel seats out there, and this is that's kind of what the reel sits in there, and then it gets cinched down. That's kind of how the reel seats work. And they have exposed where you can touch the blank. They're saying that's supposed to be more sensitive. It just depends on what I'm using that for as to whether that is or not. But most of the casting rods have that exposed reel seat. Some of them don't, but it really depends on the application, because all these are technique specific. And then we get into the handles. Now, a number of years ago, all the rods, and basically all the rods on the market now, have gone to what they call split grips. It used to be there was just a cork handle all the way down, or foam all the way down. As you can see on this one right here, it used to be cork all the way down, but now everything's gone to these split grips because it's more efficient. Because this right here was a waste of space. Nobody was gripping the rod right here to fish with it. People were gripping it down here to cast it, and they were gripping it up here to cast it or to fish with it. Nobody ever had to use this grip, so they did what they call split grip. So now everything has kind of gone to split grip, including even spinning rods are split grip. But as far as the grips are concerned, you've got a couple different materials. Now, I showed you that this is old school cork. This is actually from a cork tree. I think that's pretty wild and pretty amazing. And really, it goes way back to fly rods and like early fishing rods. That's what they used to make the handles, because cork is a very light material and it's got a good grip. So once they polished the cork and smoothed it out and sanded it, and they got it to the right shape they wanted, it provided a good, comfortable grip that was pretty durable. Now, you can definitely take a hook point and knock chunks of the cork off. Cork is from a tree, you know, and they're very limited. They're only grown in like one region in France or something. I'm not completely aware of all those details, but all as I know, cork is a natural material. It does break. It's hard to clean. You can clean it. It's harder to clean, and the cork dissipates energy. It is comfortable, but it does not allow the transfer of the sensitivity from whatever rod you're using through the guides, through the line, through the blank, and into your hand, to where you can feel that fish going dunk, bong, whatever sound you like to make for a fish bite, bong. You can feel that fish bite on the end of it. I feel like that the cork dissipates that, and you lose some sensitivity with the cork handle. Is it good grip, and does it look cool, and is it old school? Absolutely. But one other option is foam, like high density foam. I don't like foam for the same reason I don't like cork, is that it dissipates the energy. Cashion has come up with carbon fiber handles to where they have this weave, and then they have another fiberglass chunk, I believe it is, under there, and it's all epoxy together, so it transmits any sensitivity from the guides or the line that goes through this blank into your hand. So it takes that energy and transmits it better to where it's more sensitive. And I mean, I've had people say, oh, well, those look like they'd slip. No, dude, these aren't slipping. You can have, you know, smelly jelly on your fingers or sunscreen or whatever, and you're not going to slip with these rods. It's not going to be due to the grip, because I've fished with them for years. So I really like the carbon fiber handles, you know, when you're looking at handles. So we've gone through the guides, we've gone through how the blanks are made, we've gone through the handles, and then a lot of the other portions of the rod is kind of related to the rods, but then you've got rod tips. They're going to be different sizes. And they're easily replaceable. Might do a whole video on how to replace a rod tip. I'm not an expert on it. I've done it. I can do it in a pinch. Is it perfect? Probably not. I did one earlier this year, and I didn't do a very good job of it, so I had to bring it back to my buddy Mark here in the warehouse, who is very good with rods, and it was not because of anything that manufacturing does. It was something that I did. I messed up my guide. But that's pretty much all the fishing rod basics. If you have any other questions, again, I don't know how basic you want to go, but this is a casting reel. You're going to have this, whenever you see this trigger on the bottom, that's made for a bait casting reel. The spinning reels, spinning rods, they're going to have not going to have that trigger. You're not going to see that trigger, and then the reel is going to cinch on there the same way. And then your guides are traditionally bigger on that spinning reel, because the line's going to be coming off in this direction, and they need a little bit bigger starting point before they get funneled down to the smaller guides towards the end. So there's all your fishing rod basics. If you have any more questions, hit me up down there in the comments. Let me know what you want to know about the basics of fishing rods, and if you think something that I said was wrong, please educate everybody. We'd like to hear that as well. I ain't gonna be mad at you, I promise you. So if you have any other topics you want to learn about, be sure to drop that down there as well. Thanks for watching.